estamos acá con el profesor doctor Ariel Durán, quien presentará la conferencia inaugural.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Carolina. Buenos días, estimados colegas. Es un gusto para mí iniciar esta conferencia, coordinar esta conferencia inaugural. Mi nombre es Ariel Durán, soy cardiólogo y es un enorme placer introducir al doctor Gerhard Hindricks de Alemania, del cual tiene un currículum tremendamente extenso y muy valioso, del cual entonces vamos a resumir que el doctor Hindricks es cardiólogo, internista y electrofisiólogo, y ha participado en numerosísimos trials, es editor en jefe del European Journal, es director del Centro de Leipzig de Cardiología, director del Departamento de Electrofisiología de dicho hospital, y participa activamente en todas las guías actuales de electrofisiología, por lo cual es conocido mundialmente. Doctor Hindricks, es un placer darle la palabra y lo escuchamos.
Hello, dear colleagues in Uruguay. First of all, can you understand me and can you see me well?
Yes, we listen to you very well, and also we can see you in
Excellent.
Good condition.
Excellent. Thank you so much for inviting me. Needless to say that I would have loved to be with you in person, and I can assure you when there is another occasion next year, it will be my privilege to visit the beautiful country of Uruguay and share the great hospitality of the Uruguayan people. I have been in Uruguay a couple years ago, and I have still good memories on the visit of your country. I consider it a particular honor that you allow me to speak in the next 20 to 25 minutes about some of the key developments that I see in the field of cardiovascular medicine upcoming at the horizon. And I think on one side it is difficult to predict the future. Who would have thought that we will have a pandemic 3 years ago? But by the same time, it makes sense to think about the developments that most likely will happen in the next 10 years to come. I'm an electrophysiologist, so there is a tendency of an overrepresentation of electrophysiology and electrocardiography in my presentation, and I kindly ask you for your understanding, but I've taken only examples of what I think will happen in the future. So what are we going to see worldwide in the field of cardiovascular medicine? Needless to say, there will be a tremendous increase in the prevalence of cardiovascular diseases in the years to come. No matter where you look, you will see an increase which is driven by the key comorbidities that are relevant for the development of cardiovascular disease. Diabetes will increase, hypertension will increase, heart failure will increase, coronary artery disease will increase. This is driven by lifestyle and by age. So the healthcare systems need to be better prepared to cope with this global challenge of, I would say, a tsunami of cardiovascular disease that will come ahead of us. If you look to the right side, these are projections that I've taken from a recent publication in Lancet. Cardiovascular disease will be the key driver in the states of disease that we see in a global perspective. Mapping of the developments. Everything starts with measuring, and I highly recommend reading of this beautiful element of descriptive science. It's the ESC Atlas, a mapping of the development of cardiovascular diseases with a focus on Europe, but not leaving the global perspective out. It's a 60-page document that I consider by far the best on the planet to understand what's happening in the key drivers and risk factors for cardiovascular disease, what are the effects of the activities that we have the responsibility to go for as the societies in cardiovascular medicine in Europe and in South America as well, and what the impact of these activities will be. I have 6 potential topics to share with you when it comes to the future of cardiovascular medicine. We will talk about the transformation of the healthcare sector, and the most important prediction from my side, the biggest trend that I see, is that the traditional healthcare sectors will be enriched by new elements that I call healthcare spaces. There will be new spaces in cardiovascular healthcare. Actually, that was the topic of the German Society meeting that we just had a couple of weeks ago. And we need to understand these new spaces to see the opportunities that we have as cardiovascular clinicians and scientists to proactively go into that field, because otherwise this field will be covered by other players in the field that do not have our interests and that do not have the interests of our patients. So we will go into new healthcare spaces. Digital medicine, digitalization will play a key role. And this is an analytic of the most important factors of new technologies that we see in medicine in the years to come. And I just will highlight some of them. It's remote monitoring solutions that will gain more importance. It's digital platform integration. It's patient-facing mobile apps that we will see. It's home care. New spaces for cardiovascular care will be, to a certain extent, home care. There will be dedicated spaces at home for the monitoring and improvement of health status and chronic states of disease like hypertension, heart failure, and diabetes. Artificial intelligence will play a key role. If we bring it up all together, what's going to be the most important factors that will define the new healthcare spaces that we see in the next 10 years? And this is an analytics and an analysis of an assessment in North America and Europe. There is a clear call that artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things will be the key elements that drive. So AI will become really, really big. I don't want to overdo it and want to claim that we have to trust everything which is currently ongoing in the field of AI, but machine learning, artificial intelligence, and implementation of these technologies will be key. If we look to the healthcare sector in 2020, as we have it in Germany, for many states of severe disease, it's not common, it's severe disease, then we have 56% in the inpatient care, 32% in so-called ambulatory care, 8% in home care, and only 4% in virtual care. Virtual, centralized healthcare monitoring and healthcare support centers will come. So centralization will play a key role also in the digital world. The 5G networks are built up worldwide. 5G will ensure that transmission of relevant and delicate human healthcare data can be delivered with for 3G and 4G never expected degree of reliability. The data compression in 5G is so high that it is 1,000 times above the data that can be transferred with 4G. So it will be 5G in healthcare will be disruptive, and I foresee that we will see a substantial change in the healthcare sector with new spaces in virtual care and in home care, and we should be prepared for that. The technologies are there. But we have to be the ones setting up the systems that care can be delivered by the traditional healthcare sector. And currently, the traditional healthcare sector is underrepresented in this development. Digital applications will become routine, like the ECG. And I just want to share with you some work that has been very recently done on the use of convolutional neural networks for detection of arrhythmias, for example, like atrial fibrillation. Consider to detect atrial fibrillation from the sinus rhythm ECG. Consider a work stream where data from wearables and from lifestyle applications, from Apple Watches, from Samsung Watches, can be automatically integrated into analytics and into assessment, and can then be transformed into treatment. We have developed a system where automatic access of wearable ECG data to an analytic platform with automatic analysis of the ECG and connection to treatment has become reality even today. Once more, we should not leave that sector to the IT global players like Apple and Google. We should cooperate with them, and we should be the ones who transform biological data into medicine and quality of care. Convolutional neural networks for detection of atrial fibrillation are unbelievably strong. And there are data that clearly show that the power of machine learning and artificial intelligence is at least as high as the competence of a well-trained cardiologist. It's a little bit painful, dear colleagues, to see that these applications, if the data set is clean and has been implemented in the system appropriately, that these systems are superior to human analysis of the ECG. There are two specific items that I would like to point out that have deeply impressed me and have sent out another signal that artificial intelligence and deep learning algorithms will revolutionize cardiovascular medicine in the next 10 years. That is the power of artificial intelligence to diagnose significantly impaired left ventricular function from the surface ECG and to detect atrial fibrillation from the sinus rhythm ECG. This is work from Peter Noseworthy from Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic is one of the leading centers in the world in these applications, and the slide depicts their setup of analysis of serial ECGs assessed in a deep neural convolutional network with respect to the ability of the sinus rhythm ECG to show atrial fibrillation. This is the outcome, and please see the area under the curve, the high sensitivity and specificity to detect the presence of atrial fibrillation from the sinus rhythm ECG. This is the next step. It is a big step, but I'm sure it will become reality in clinical application. I've talked to Peter Noseworthy and Paul Friedman recently. They have already installed this technology in their local network with cardiologists, and even today the ECGs from patients at risk of atrial fibrillation are analyzed accordingly. Prediction of the left ventricular ejection fraction from the ECG. Yes, it's possible, and it's again work from the Mayo Clinic group that shows that we can open up completely new doors in using these technologies for application in cardiovascular medicine. So I would like to focus your attention on the lower left side of the graph, and what the graph shows is that from the surface ECG, when the screening result by the automatic algorithm, the AI application, indicated normal left ventricular function of more than 50%, this proved to be true in almost 93% of the patients. On the other side, when the screening by AI from the surface ECG to predict impaired left ventricular function was positive, 32% had ejection fraction of less than 35%, 35%, 26% had an ejection fraction between 35 and 50%, but also 42% had an ejection fraction of more than 50%. So they were screened and they were false positive. The interesting observation in this setting was that from these 42% that were false positive, more than 60% developed impaired left ventricular function during follow-up of the next 4 years. New technologies will play a key role in the future of cardiovascular medicine. Smaller, faster, safer. And I would like to share with you one of the most dramatic applications that will come up in cardiovascular medicine and in electrophysiology, which is pulse field ablation. Pulse field ablation is a new technology for isolation of the pulmonary veins, and the energy source is so interesting because it's so much safer as compared to radiofrequency application and cryo application. The key element is that the tissue injury by pulse field ablation is induced by direct electrical currents. So it's a non-thermal mechanism. When we move on with catheter ablation of atrial fibrillation to younger and less severe symptomatic patients with atrial fibrillation, the procedure has to be safer than current application. And this is also one of the key advantages of pulse field ablation over other modes of catheter ablation for atrial fibrillation. The speed of treatment is absolutely breathtaking. We have treated the first couple dozens of patients here at the Heart Center in Leipzig, and you can isolate all pulmonary veins in less than 1 hour with a very, very high degree of sustainability. This is the energy source that is applied, and you see here the results on pulmonary vein potentials before and after pulse field ablation as compared to radiofrequency energy. So it's safer because there is no phrenic nerve palsy, there is no pulmonary vein stenosis, and there is also no esophageal damage. So the big 3 complication elements should be gone, and I foresee in the next 5 years a dramatic increase in the utilization of these technologies. This depicts the safety for application in close to the esophagus, and the devastating complication of atrioesophageal fistula is no longer there. Why is this the case? Because the tissue has specific resistance towards this energy source, and myocardium, as shown in the lower left of this slide, is by far more sensitive to this energy source as compared to other types of tissue that are more resistive to this energy source and reduces the collateral damage. This illustrates, is taken from one of my friends, Atul Verma, the application of this energy source. You see now the energy is delivered and the pulmonary veins are isolated within seconds. I play it for you one more time because it is really so impressive. You see the huge pulmonary vein potentials here. Then the energy is applied now in less than 100 milliseconds, and the potentials are gone. It's one of the most impressive innovations that I've seen over time. The two more topics to share with you. What's going to happen in the next 10 years in respect of risk prediction for cardiovascular disease, risk prediction for coronary artery disease, risk prediction for sudden cardiac death are key elements, and new data analysis will open up new windows that will allow us by far better risk prediction. Needless to say, sudden cardiac death is still a dramatic event, and despite the benefits that could be gained with individual ICD implantations, we have not made significant progress. Why is it so difficult to predict sudden cardiac death? Because it's a singular, fatal or rare event. It's governed by dynamic risks that are dependent and independent factors, genetic, metabolic, autonomic, mechanical, or completely external factors play a role, and a complex and highly variable physiology on the dynamic timelines is also something which makes sudden cardiac death so important. We have analyzed together with partners around the globe the biggest data set with modern modes of data evaluation to better understand and predict sudden cardiac death, and have also used applications of artificial learning, of artificial intelligence and machine learning. I would like to share with you the current status and the perspective for the next 6 years of the PROFIT project. PROFIT is a public-sponsored project by the European Community with 24 million euro to better understand sudden cardiac death. And the strategy is in phase 1, the re-evaluation of existing evidence. More than 220,000 individual data sets, all adjudicated for sudden cardiac death, have been analyzed to develop a new risk predictor and then go to clinical trials, the largest clinical trials in the field of ICD implantation that have ever been conducted, almost 4,000 patients. I would like to share with you briefly the outcome of phase 1 of PROFIT, and then look into the future of phase 2 and phase 3 that we will start probably at the beginning of next year. We have looked at 225,000 observations from 19 different data sets, and have evaluated these data sets in a roll-in, roll-out model that was then put into a meta-analysis, and this meta-analysis was analyzed with 2 traditional statistical models and two advanced statistical models. In phase 2, we have also analyzed MRI data for risk prediction of sudden cardiac death, and I can share that with you already now. MRI will play a key role in the risk stratification for sudden cardiac death in the future. These are the data sets, 224,000 patients, all different degrees of left ventricular ejection fraction are included in this analysis. On the upper right side, you see the 4 models, weighable and flexible parametric survival model, statistical models, and 2 machine learning models. Interesting is that the prediction of left ventricular ejection fraction for sudden cardiac death was low with an area under the curve of 0.61. 0.5 is flipping a coin, 0.61, and that the other clinical variables that we have analyzed and included in the model did not substantially add to the risk prediction. We have now analyzed the CMR data, and the CMR data substantially improved the risk prediction, not to to another world, but to a substantial extent, with area under the curves of 0.75, and this is something we can work with. We will now transfer that into a risk predictor and then go to large-scale clinical trials. Global solutions for better healthcare. 5 minutes on the last topic. I would like to share with you the CUBE project, which is probably one of the most the strongest activities in the healthcare sector to improve globally the quality of care, also in the cardiovascular segment. This slide summarizes the money which is available in different geographies across the globe for healthcare per capita, and we have to see that in many regions the budgets are limited, and we cannot talk about $12,000 per year as in North America. We have to see that there are geographies where the healthcare budgets are around $100 and $200 per capita. What is the access to care? How long do people have to travel to get access to care in a global setting? And you see that there are huge variabilities. This has been taken from a recent publication of Nature Medicine, and I would like to share with you a digital application that has the strength and the power to improve the access to care in a global perspective. This summarizes the challenges that we are currently facing. Until 2050, a dramatic increase in the prevalence of common disease in 3 fields: cancer, cardiovascular, infectious diseases. And the healthcare systems are not prepared to cover this. The traditional healthcare system will not be ready to take this challenge. And I would like to share with you an idea that may put it to a completely different set. I jump over these because we are running a little bit out of time. I would like to share with you the idea of the connection of digital applications with telemedicine and the physical availability of small diagnostic and treatment centers, which is called the CUBE project, Care for You to Be. It relies on digital applications, it relies on self-assessment, it relies on small diagnostic centers that can be reached for further diagnostic and treatment. And if we look to the healthcare sector in many geographies around the globe, we see that there are significant shortcomings that need to be addressed. One is that the costs are very high, and that the budgets for healthcare are limited in many geographies. So our offer to the healthcare sector is a combination of this digital application. We start with self-assessment in the digital applications. 28 states of common disease have already been mapped and are ready to be analyzed by self-assessment. Connection to digital hospitals, so there will be no physical contacts, only digital hospitals, and whenever physical contacts are necessary, we advise the patient to go to small units where further diagnostics and also treatment can be achieved. So these were my key topics and my key predictions for the next 10 years in the field of cardiovascular medicine. I believe that 3 elements will be leading, and that we need to put focus on these 3 elements, which is ambulantization. There will be more outpatient treatment, home treatment, and virtual treatment than before. This is concentration, center building in digital and non-digital types of medicine, and digitalization, the most powerful tool to improve the quality of care in cardiovascular and beyond around the globe. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias, doctor Hindricks. Una excelente conferencia inaugural para comenzar este Congreso Uruguayo de Cardiología 2022, que es el evento cardiológico más importante del país. Evidentemente, bueno, y gracias también por ceñirse al tiempo. No voy a hacer preguntas sobre un par de comentarios. Evidentemente, la tecnología está unida a la medicina. Sin tecnología no se puede avanzar. Eso sucede desde que se descubrió el electrocardiograma en su país hace más de 100 años. Y eso, obviamente, el tema está muy bien separar. La economía de los países varía mucho también su inversión en medicina. Ha sido muy ilustrador, muy interesante ver esa diferencia de tiempo, incluso de acceso al cuidado médico, de las distancias, de cuánto dinero ponen los diferentes países en función de lo que pueden hacer según su producto bruto. Ha sido un excelente comienzo del Congreso. Esperemos tenerlo por Uruguay nuevamente y disfrutar juntos de su conocimiento. Muchas gracias, doctor Hindricks. Ha sido un placer.
Thank you so much. It has been a privilege to be with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Adios.